To find out how much marijuana is too much to get behind the wheel, we have set up a driving course. We've also recruited the help of a drug recognition expert. And we have marijuana and volunteers. We're going to find out how much marijuana is too much to be on the road.
The strain is actually called Blueberry Trainwreck.
As a consultant prepared our marijuana smoking lab, 3 volunteers each took a practice run on a course set up by the Thurston County Sheriff's Office, designed to test their basic driving skills. In the car with them is Cascade Driving School instructor Mike Jackson, who has a brake on his side of the vehicle for safety.
I can either grab the wheel or I can touch the brake and bring him to a safe stop.
Our first volunteer, Addie, is a 27-year-old medical marijuana patient and heavy daily user who had smoked some pot prior to arriving. A blood test before our experiment began showed she came to the track already 3 times the new legal limit for driving under the influence of marijuana. The limit is 5 nanograms. She was at nearly 16 nanograms. While learning the course, Addie turned too sharp at a stop sign and clipped one of our cameras. But the instructor told us her driving was actually fine. Our second volunteer is 34-year-old Dylan, who uses pot on weekends. An initial test showed no marijuana in his system. Finally, we have 56-year-old Jeff, who uses only occasionally. He also started out with no detectable pot in his body.
All right.
Next, we had the volunteers start smoking marijuana. We gave them each 0.3 of a gram of pot to smoke, and from the light to the heavy user, asked them how they felt.
Feeling really buzzed. Yeah.
Relaxed and buzzed.
I still feel normal.
Back behind the wheel for another lap, Addie drove a bit slower than she should, and at one point struck a traffic cone.
Oh, I hit a cone. I see it in the rearview mirror. Ah!
A blood test would later show Addie was driving at 7 times the legal limit for pot with 36.7 nanograms of marijuana in her system, but still driving okay.
I wouldn't pull her off the road, no. Not yet. Not this point.
After 0.3 a gram of pot, Dylan was doing fine behind the wheel.
Ooh, that was fun.
Even though our lab tests would later reveal he was driving at 5 times the legal limit with 26 nanograms of pot in his system. When we got Jeff on the track, he was being cautious and driving slower than he should, which could catch the eye of a police officer on the road. His blood test showed Jeff was 4 times the legal limit with nearly 22 nanograms in his system. But again, his driving, while slow, was still at acceptable levels.
He did real well.
We had our volunteers smoke and drive 2 more times until they had all smoked 0.9 of a gram of pot, and they were feeling it.
I'm starting to get it. Oh, yeah. I can feel it in my eyes. I can feel it in my body, in my head.
I don't know if I can get, much more stoned, even if I keep smoking it.
And it started to show more on the road. With a drug recognition expert from the Thurston County Sheriff's Office watching, Dylan started having trouble remembering how to drive the course.
Oh, what is this cone in the middle?
Confused, he turned early and left the track.
You missed out. Oh, let's make another left. Let's do it again. I'll give you a second chance.
Okay.
Then, while going through a 20-mile-an-hour corner, the instructor had to grab the wheel to stop Dylan from swinging wide and hitting our photographer.
Watch yourself, watch yourself.
I had to grab the wheel to keep him basically from running you over.
If I were to be watching him on a road, I would have stopped him.
Jeff's driving also got worse the more he smoked.
His backing is very slow.
We watched him back over a cone, and after 0.9 of a gram of pot, he drove so slowly the officer told us he should not be on the road. Jeff agreed.
You don't think you should be behind the wheel right now?
Well, I would prefer not to, yeah.
After 0.9 of a gram, Addie was becoming much more aggressive, excited about being high and behind the wheel.
One time in your life you get to do this, you should do it.
Yeah.
You should do it! Yeah, it's awesome.
But she made no major mistakes, and we asked the officer if he would pull her over.
Borderline.
We decided to allow Addie to smoke one last time, bringing her total smoked to 1.4 grams. Back in the car, Addie knew she was having trouble.
Way more stoned. Way more stoned. Definitely shouldn't be driving.
And she drove with no restraint.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look at that. That was awesome. That was awesome.
Less than 30 seconds into the drive, she started backing up and didn't stop until she wiped out a cone.
Which would have been indicative of backing into a pole or maybe a citizen on a sidewalk.
The sheriff's officer, driving instructor, and even Addie agreed she would not be safe if she was on a public road.
She would be a danger, yeah.
Yeah, definitely that's dangerous.
To confirm the volunteers were driving impaired, we treated them like anyone else pulled over and suspected of drug use. The county's drug recognition expert put them through a 12-step evaluation, checking things like their balance. Heart rate and blood pressure were also checked. They all had issues, including Jeff, who couldn't find his nose with his fingertip.
I would say that all three would have been arrested for driving under the influence.
A final blood check 1 hour after her final smoke showed Addie at 11 times the legal limit with 58.8 nanograms in her system. We checked Jeff an hour and 45 minutes after his last puff of pot, and his levels had dropped to 2 times the legal limit at 12.9 nanograms. And Dylan was tested a full 2.5 hours after he last smoked and was still 2 times the legal limit, but his nanograms had dropped to 11.1. It's true all 3 volunteers were able to safely drive a car for a while, 4 times or more over the legal marijuana DUI limit, but they eventually made driving errors that on a public road could have resulted in getting pulled over by police or much worse.
Other people's lives are in danger when someone gets stoned and goes and drives.
Just like you're drinking. If you go out drinking, you don't need to be driving. If you're out smoking, you don't need to be driving.
Some critics argue the legal limit for driving under the influence of marijuana was set too low. So, does the fact that our volunteers were able to smoke pot and drive safely at 4 times the legal limit prove their case? Not necessarily. That's because the intoxicating effects of marijuana vary from plant to plant and from person to person. And you have to remember, our volunteers were on a closed course, working with a safety net. They weren't out here driving alone with the rest of us.